Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the regular governing board meeting for March 18th in person. We are here. I'm calling the meeting to order. If you can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. We'll establish a quorum. All the directors are here. We also have, for staff, this is for a roll call. We have Kathy. We have Riley. We have General Manager Schwinn, CFO Pete, Carl, our construction guru, Russ, our maintenance, Todd Patty, Katie, Don, Johnson, Martin, Pat, Marie, and we have actually two guests here today, two owner members, and they'll be recognized later on. That's for Karen. Thank you very much for establishing quorum. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the March 5th meeting? Hearing and seeing none, they'll be adopted as ordered. We have this thing called the consent agenda. The consent agenda is published for reading. There is one correction on there. There was a misposting of the properties on there, and that has been corrected. So, Bob?
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I move to approve the consent agenda and accept the March end-of-month reports as filed information.
Are there any objections to that? Seeing none, by consensus, it's approved. We are moving speedily along. Every month, we've had one of our staff presentations, and today it is Russ Boston about facility maintenance. Russ, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to give you a little insight in facilities maintenance, or the facilities division. Inside the facilities division, we have two major components, which is facilities operations and facilities maintenance. We also have, We also have capital projects, employee safety, AV drone, which is new, and a courier service. Under facilities and our management staff, we have a combined 145 years of combined service in the names you see here. Whoops. There we go. I moved the order. So in our facilities operations, each supervisor has two facilities that they're responsible for. Each facility has one lead, with the exception of R.H. Johnson, it has two leads, upper and lower, due to its size and its complexity. At Beardsley Palm Ridge, David exchanged R.H. Johnson for Palm Ridge, so that way he has both facilities that host and supports all the events. Some of their daily routines that they do each and every day, aside from cleaning and disinfecting facilities on a daily basis, you can see the list here. The toughest item on this list is rules enforcement. The newest item, of course, is AV technician. And the most important item on this list is customer service. We also have and support the health and wellness partners, which is massage and personal training. Now on to facilities maintenance. Facilities maintenance, we have general maintenance and pool and exercise equipment. So under general maintenance, Byron Jones has 12 technicians that take care of all mechanical, structural issues within the 54 buildings on 21 sites. We also deal with 4 miles of painted common walls throughout Sun City West. And just as an FYI, Don Fulton, the middle tech, has he's going on 35 years of service. On the HVAC side, we have 2 techs that are responsible for Just some of the items: 240 HVAC units. I know you guys have heard me say this numerous times. But also with that, becoming a supervisor, before becoming a supervisor, Byron was our lead HVAC tech. He maintains his license and stays current, which enables him to cover and assist in the field when needed. Onto our plumbing. We currently have one Tech 3 plumber with an assigned assistant that takes care of 54 water heaters, 120 drinking fountains, which have gotten more complicated as we switch to the bottle fillers, and 275 toilets and urinals. That keeps him pretty busy. On the aquatic side, Carlos has 1.5 technicians that take care of all fitness equipment, repair pool and spas, related heaters, motors, and equipment. The part-time position works weekends and holidays to assure the chemistry in the pool is swim ready. Some of the other items they take care of. So a total of 1.72 million gallons of chemically treated water. That's all our pools and spas combined. 159 pieces of exercise equipment. All 4 of our pump rooms now have automated chemical delivery systems, which are field checked 3 times a day, even on the weekends, to assure the systems are functioning properly. We also have added UV and oxygenation systems to all of our pools. So that concludes everything. With the combination of both departments, I feel that together we are a stronger team. Together we strive to make our facilities better. We will continue to raise the bar, improve where needed to provide great service internally and for our residents well into the future. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Russ. Any questions for Jim? Go right ahead, please.
Russ, I don't know what you call it, but when you fix the pools, you don't use chlorine exclusively. You use a healthier method. Do you have that in all of our pools yet?
So we do use chlorine in all of our pools. The added UV, oxygenation, everything that we use that's new helps reduce chlorine.
Right.
But because of county regulations, if they came out with a product that allowed us to not use chlorine, we'd still have to use chlorine.
I know that, but my question is, are all of the pools use the other source, oxygen, whatever?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for Russ? Russ, thank you very much. And I think that you guys not only do a great job, but also based on the amount of budget dollars that goes into maintenance here, the standards you keep are second to none. And I want to thank you and your staff directly for that. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at you and Carl and Todd, and I'm just looking around at everything we see in Sun City West is sitting on those 3 shoulders squarely, and the place is absolutely spectacularly beautiful. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for saying so. I'll pass that along.
Okay. Next person up is March Properties Report by Roberta Davison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to say that after a lively discussion in our committee, that it was decided that we would vote it to delay the pickleball recommendation until the master plan has been delivered to the governing board.
Very good. Thank you very much on that report. Bill, you're next up with a brief COVID update. And as of I'm sitting here, Bill, it still hasn't updated.
Okay. Thank you, George. Just a brief update regarding COVID. As you all well know, the governor on March 11th issued another executive order talking about the conditions of where we are in the state of Arizona, and pressed forward on a recommendation or an order per se to include opening the gymnasiums and fitness centers and indoor aquatic facilities on a statewide basis. That was effective immediately. So it took us about a week to get everything turned around and make sure we had enough staff ready to go as far as those went. But again, we are open. We are open to visitors and guests. And so our hours are back the way they were prior to COVID coming on the scene. But we still are taking the social distancing and the other CDC recommendations to heart. The latest out of the CDC now, as long as people are wearing masks, that social distancing thing has been dropped down to 3 feet. So things are hopefully getting better, and hopefully they stay that way. Worldwide, I know you all are very aware of what's going on, but we are focusing here on the Sun City West area and how we deal with this issue placed upon us. So the numbers, at least in our zip code area, are declining. The increased numbers of vaccination within Sun City West zip codes are increasing. George, you mentioned the business dashboards, which we check every Thursday.
As of right now, they have not updated, but we're waiting on Arizona government to move fast.
Right. And so those are the benchmark numbers that we look at, and those recommendations from the Arizona Department of Health kind of help guide us as to what we're doing and when. I will share with you that the latest numbers relative to Sun City West, as far as the vaccines go, we're at about a 65.5% rating as far as the population with inside the walls here, so that's tremendous. And so a little over 19,500 people of our population have gotten a vaccine. So that is a very good number, and we hope that everybody stays healthy and well. As you know, you're going to see emails both ways thanking us for opening, as well as what are you doing opening, and why don't you close? So it's tough to manage. But again, as long as we follow the science, I think we're in good shape, and we continue to do so. Thank you.
Bill, there's been a number of emails that have been forced our way of why we don't ask people for certification before they come into our recreation centers. Could you just quickly address that, please?
Certainly. Again, as you know, vaccines are not mandated. So those are personal choices for people. So to not allow people into a facility based on not having some kind of accreditation or card that they have been vaccinated really wouldn't work. So there are lots of reasons people don't get vaccines, be it their own personal beliefs, whether it's a religious belief, whether they, but it's a personal choice. And so with that, we ask people to be as safe as they know how, mask up, and follow all the guidelines that the medical industry is professing, and hopefully all stays well.
Okay, thank you. The question was come up about, and maybe Marie, I can just ask you, if somebody's asking for that as a person, is that a violation of our HIPAA issue? I'm sorry. Hold on. Marie's going to answer on the microphone. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. I don't think it's specifically a violation of HIPAA, but we have to remember that vaccines are a very personal choice, and someone that may have an underlying medical condition cannot get vaccinated for whatever reason. And so I think that might be where you might get the...
I just want to make sure, because we've been getting quite a few emails over that situation, and just wanted to make sure that we got it right from the staff's direction. Okay, thank you. Sharon, I'm sorry.
Does that same statement, Marie, take into consideration taking your temperature at the door before they're let in a club? Are we allowed to do that as well? Or Bill? I don't know who answers that.
When it comes to temperature testing, as far as the individual clubs go, those are individual club decisions. It's not mandated by us, but if the clubs themselves, based on the proximity of what they're doing, how close they are to one another, if they want to proceed that way, they certainly can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And any other questions? Thank you, Bill. Jim Young again? Yes, Jim.
Bill, the last time we were here, we were at 25% allowing in the clubs. You were talking about going to 50%. It sounds to me like you're going to 100%. Is that correct?
Based on the governor's orders, sir, when he mandated that we can basically turn that around, we did go with that, so yes.
Okay, the other question is, do we limit the number of visitors?
At the current time, no.
So if I brought 10 people and I paid for them, that would be fine?
Sir.
Okay, I'm just asking. I've had several questions.
Anything else, directors? Yes,
Okay, so back to the guest question, because that was one, I didn't know whether this was the right time to ask, but we have received letters from people asking why we're letting guests in when 65% of the community has been given vaccinations, but not the general population in Arizona.
Right.
So is there a way to, I mean, I don't know what the answer is either, but I can understand their concerns about going out, and I don't want it to affect what we do inside the community. Because we're allowing guests in, a lot of people won't go out to our clubs or do anything because they're there.
Right. And that's, again, it's a personal decision. But again, we are basically the prop that we've been using, obviously, have been Arizona Department of Health and anything coming out of the governor's office, kind of steering us along those lines. And the last executive order that came out was basically regarding these facilities that they were to immediately open. And so we took it upon ourselves to go that route. We continue to monitor numbers as far as participation goes and looking at guests and looking at that type of thing. We're not seeing an overly huge overrun at this particular point in time. We can react to that, but being this is the month for spring break and a lot of visitors in our peak season, we're kind of paying attention to that. But we are, based on the numbers that we're seeing on a weekly basis, we're not seeing the overrun.
Thank you.
thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Next up, filings. Ann.
The January and February 2021 financials have been reviewed and accepted by the Budget and Finance Committee, and they have been filed.
Thank you very much. As I attended the BNF meeting, great job, Pete. Great job by your staff reporting this, keeping us financially sound. Any other comments or questions on that? Hearing none. Yes.
And didn't your committee review the pickleball situation also?
We'll get to that, Jim.
Okay, well, I thought it'd be in her report, that's all.
That's okay. We'll get to it. Thank you, though. Okay. New business is 5.1. I get the pleasure of doing something that I haven't done all year, is to make a motion. Now I have to pull it up there. Actually, it's a motion to renew the Special Torch Committee till March 2022. Okay, I just need a second for that. Bob will second that. Is there a consensus to move that forward? Hearing no objections, it will be moved forward, going forward. I have to move papers. Next up is Sue.
After discussion by the governing board, I move that the governing board approve the Special Arts and Design Committee as proposed.
I need a second, please.
I'll second it.
Second by Donna.
Could I speak to it?
Okay, is there discussion?
I'd like to speak to it.
Go right ahead, please.
Okay, just as a review, the purpose of this committee, which would be doing most of its work in April and May of this year, is to use the artistic talents of community members to enhance the beauty of Rec Center, Sun City West common areas. The goals that we would try to accomplish in the next 2 months is to identify common areas that would be appropriate for enhancement through art, kind of like a brainstorming situation, only doing it on the spot. And then we would like to identify club art that might have the potential for display in those common areas, which may be involved in conversations with club presidents. And then we would like to present those design suggestions for common areas as well that maybe don't typically involve a club art, but maybe something just to enhance an area. So that's a design idea. And then we'd also like to foster some community art projects to involve all the citizens of Sun City West. So this group is to do some planning, and then we can determine if there's a future for continuing with the projects. Hopefully, and then they would be identifying projects that we could address for the next year. Are there questions?
Sharon?
a couple questions. Does it have a time limit in the proposal to come back and review it so that we can, if we say, yes, we'd like to do this in a year, are we gonna relook at this, or 6 months, or whatever it is? And also to bring back information about what's working and what's not in regards to what the goals and objectives are. And number two is, how do you get involved if you're someone in the community?
Well, first of all, there have been articles in the paper, and I've been taking names. I've got a committee that's going to start meeting on Tuesday, and I'm checking with Karen, although she's been out, on whether or not there were some applications that had been completed. So people that are interested should fill out the committee application form online and indicate that you have an interest in this committee. The idea is that this is a planning group, and there will be many opportunities if we decide to do a project or many projects that then would involve other folks rather than if they're not involved at this point. And your other concern in terms of coming back, I'm hoping that we will have maybe 3 to 5 projects that we want to tackle for next year. And as our committees operate on the board, they come back, and then the approval comes from the governing board as to whether or not these are things that we want to see us go forward with. Fortunately, we have Carl Wilhelm, who will be on the committee, who will be able to tell us if these things are even possible, so that we're realistic with the ideas that we may have. And it's pretty hard to tell you what those will be because we're trying to create something. So yes, those things will come back, and we will have a look at them, and this will become maybe a guideline for committees in the future to look at and say, okay, we've got, the Metal Club suggested that they could make some wind sculptures. And then we can go back to the data we've collected and identify where that might be best located. So that's how the feedback will come, and then we can determine if we want this as a special committee for next year, or if we want it to operate in a different manner, or we don't want it to operate at all. So
it comes back to the board in
Yes,
regards to keeping. That's
absolutely.
what
Right, because if we want to continue with the board, with it next year, you have to approve that it's a special committee again. So
Thank
that's
you.
the process.
Thank
Other
you.
questions?
Any other comments or questions?
Well,
Jim,
Yeah.
go right ahead, please.
I brought my concerns up before, and I still have them. I know it won't matter, but I feel this is a staff situation with the input from individuals and so forth. But to form a committee to do this, I'm scared. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? What I have is I have a motion and I have a second, and I need a yay or nay to move this forward. A yes would be to approve the committee. A nay would be not to. I'll do a roll call on this one. Sharon?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Sue? Donna?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jim?
No.
Okay. Motion carries 6-1. Thank you. Next on our list is a Q&A. The next two are Q&As. The first one is the 50-plus project by Carl Wilhelm. I'd just like to make sure that the audience that's listening in and everybody else is in there, the reason we go through these projects is because as the governing board, we are only allowed to do a one-year budget. That's what our bylaws say. We can't encumber future boards to do things that are, let's just say, we want to put an ice skating rink up. We can't approve that they'll pay for it in 2 years on a budget or things like that. That's why we go through these things. I just want to make sure that we're all about that. Now, I just need to, there's been a lot of topics that has come around the pickleball question that is out there. Roberta, your properties committee asked that not go forward without a master plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Donna, did your committee also say that they did not want to go forward without a master plan?
They voted to move Kuntz forward as a second site to be
as a second
considered.
site
That is
with a master plan, right?
they
Yes.
encourage a master plan.
And your committee also had this, and was that part of, they said they were going to put it aside until the master plan was complete? Is that
That is
correct?
correct.
Okay, folks, by consensus, what I'd like to do, because the budget's not approved, and right now this is the work in process that we have, I'd like to make sure by consensus we ask Pete to strike that out of the capital for this year. And Jim, I know that was the question you had, and I wanted to just go through that to make sure if that was the case. Do we have consensus to do that?
Correct with me.
Anybody opposed to that? Yes.
I'm sorry, but I just have a question. I don't like things that don't have timelines in them. So when you say you're taking it out of the budget for this year, then is it automatically put in for the
No.
following year?
No.
Okay, so at some point, if the master plan isn't done, which it wasn't done this year, at what point do you say, okay, we've waited a year and we still don't have any answer?
Well, what it is that, again, we can't encumber going on for a year. We are locked in to not going into contracts or anything for a year, just like we can't approve a budget and say that we're going to have a new ice skating rink, as I always put it, and that we're going to pay for it in 4 years. We're not allowed to do that by our bylaws.
I understand that. What I'm suggesting, though, is that we bring this up prior to the next budget then to see where the master plan is
Well,
please let me
Yeah.
finish, in relationship to the project itself, rather than just saying it's off the table. Because all these groups have put together a lot of work in asking about what's going to happen, and the master plan has not been completed. So for them, it's like, how long are you going to keep making them wait?
Well,
So I'm just asking the question with timelines.
and that's good. And if I will, I'll go to the most recent committee that met with them, which was Ann's. I know pickleball came out with the statement that the presenter, Mr. Holtz, was there, that said very simply they were more than willing to wait until the master plan is put into, completed, to make sure that everybody gets an idea where it is, and that's where we are. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. I hope that answers your question. They're okay with willing to wait on that.
Okay, but again, I'll go back to the question. The question was, at what point do we say the master plan, let's just, for the sake of conversation here, say that in another year it's not done. So we're just going to continue to say, we're going to just continue to keep pushing it out with them? Or is there going to be some review back with
The
these
club
clubs
ha-
in,
The club
with these
has,
clubs in particular?
okay, the club has stated that they're willing to wait for the master plan.
Well,
Yes, so
I think what Sharon is asking is, when is the expectation that we will have a master plan that will answer that question? Is that next December? Is it a year and a half from now? I think that's
Yeah.
what you're asking.
okay. I misunderstood. I apologize, Sharon.
that's okay.
Yeah, we had hoped to have a master plan finished this fiscal year. Obviously, part of that scenario kind of broke down with the pandemic, right? So
Right.
when we closed facilities, we kind of lost a lot of data as far as participation numbers and usage and that kind of thing. So we've picked up. And so with the funding of the master plan being approved in July, that would open the gates for us to get a consultant on board and working with the committee and moving the thing forward. We anticipate about an 8 to 9 month program, assembling that about the same time we begin putting the budget together for the next fiscal year. So taking all of that information together, that would be somewhat of the timeline. And then based on what the recommendations may come out of that master plan and get imposed into our budget requests for the following year and years to come, again, governing board would react to that as we assemble the budget.
And that amount was the 150,000, is that correct? That's in the budget for this year for the master plan? 113. Thank you.
Okay. Now get back. Do we have consensus to take that off of the capital improvements? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you. Okay. Any other Q&A about the 50 plus that was out there? I'm just going to keep this on the agendas until we vote on the budget. In case something else, we run across a line item that we say, why do we have, the plantings, the clay pot growers or whatever that's in there? It's a question that they say that they're here to do that. Carl's willing to answer on those kinds of things. Hearing no more, there's another Q&A.
I have a question.
Yeah, Jim.
In the past, I was objecting to the Beardsley enclosure, spending $160,000,
Yes, sir.
but it was reviewed at our last meeting, and Bob gave a nice referral to why we should have it,
Mm-hmm.
and he convinced me that we should have it. I think for $160,000, which is a small portion of $5.5 million or whatever it is, it's well worth it. We don't have any, and we do have a lot of handicapped people that are that it affects. So I just wanted you to know that I support it. Thank you.
Well, Jim, thank you. And the important part is this is why we have this, that we have these Q&As going forward. The next step on this one, there'll be a couple of public forums on this in April, and one's in the evening, one I think is in the afternoon, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure about the exact time, but I know one is in the evening. I think it's at 5:30 for everybody, and I don't know if the other one's in the morning or the afternoon.
9 o'clock on the 14th.
I'm sorry?
9 o'clock on the 14th, 5:30 on the 15th.
Okay, well, that was what Pete said. Pete speaks. I'm good with that. That is well. Is there anything else to do with the budget itself? I've seen everybody's been reviewing it. We've been talking about it. Hearing no other issues on that, we'll move along. Goal attainment. That sits on there. You guys see it. Steering committee to determine scope of work to complete community master plan. We moved that up a little because we have that working as we think. Other than that, there has been no change with anything else on our goal attainment for that. Okay, let's see now. Board comments are next on our agenda. I'm going to have some fun with this one. Bob, you got anything? Board comments? No? Donna?
No comments.
Roberta?
No comment.
Sharon?
No comments.
Ann?
No comments.
Sue?
No comments.
Jim? Wow. Okay, that's a thing. Next thing are live and remote guest comments. Guests that we have here, if you'd like to make a comment, please step to the podium. Please state your name and your rec number clearly and slowly, because it's being recorded. And please sign into the sheet there. And our first person up there is our dear friend Tom Jones from ARC. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. It's not unusual, for those that didn't catch that. I was out at Kuntz, and I was just blown away at how nice it looks out there, and the parking and everything. The project is just comes forth from the street, from the actual inside the perimeter. Everything looks great. My question is, the tennis courts are closed, and I was wondering if there's an update on that.
Bill, you want to? I know this is going to be the hot topic of the comments because I got a letter I got to read in.
Yeah,
tennis courts.
I can briefly touch on that. We met with the tennis committee yesterday as far as their president and other members, reflective of some conversations that we've had relative to those tennis courts. They've been closed for about 4 months for safety issue. We've got some upheaval on the tennis court surfacing per se and the main walkway area leading to the 6 courts down there. 3 of the 6 courts also have upheaval issues that need to be addressed. We met with the club president and others on site out there a month or so ago. Carl then made some contact with General Acrylic, who's the contractor who was the one installing that surfacing. They responded back with an estimate on cost as far as amending some of those problems that we've got down there. We relayed that to the tennis committee, met with them yesterday, and they are proposing that they use some of their club money to assist in some of the repairs down there to getting that walkway fixed and allowing us to potentially open up the 3 courts that are not affected by the upheaval to allow them some opportunity to utilize those courts. And that was presented to us yesterday. So that's kind of where we sit, and I think we're tending to move in that direction. I haven't had an opportunity to sit down and talk with George yet, moving forward in that scenario. But there are a couple of things that we've talked about as well, as far as outstanding debt from the tennis club as well as pickleball, maybe moving forward to make a couple of improvements at both of those facilities. So that's kind of where we're at. So I think we're moving forward in that direction. Hopefully we get there.
Tom, I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. Yes, Jim.
Is there any estimate of cost at all? Yeah.
Overall, to repair the walkway and the 3 other courts, I believe it's close to $30,000.
Thank you.
7,000 for the walkway and the remainder on the courts.
Okay. Since there are no other comments, I see none in there. One of the things I have to take the responsibility for is last meeting, there was a letter sent in, and I was not told I had to read it into the minutes of the meeting, and it will be attached to the minutes of the meeting in there, and I'm going to read it in there because that was the commitment that I made to the person who wrote it. And again, if they send something in there and they need it read, just please let us know. More than happy to do it. This is from a man named Mike Costanza. Because I've been a member of this community since 2010. I bought here because of a look at the recreation facilities. I have played tennis my entire life in school competition, high school, college level. I love the sport because I believe it's able to keep play well into my 80s or further it to be good, healthy workout. When I first moved here, we played at Palm Ridge, a few years to convert to pickleball. Then I moved to the Kunst, but there was only a short period for when Arch Johnson had trouble getting 3 courts to play on. I was at Arch Johnson for several years, went back to Kunst, and there was some room for our group. Now it appears that tennis will not be at Kunst now or in the near future. The tennis facilities will be 12 courts less when I moved here. The only courts left will be R.H. Johnson, and I'm not sure about them. There are some issues on these courts which are redone just 2 years ago. This is not a pretty picture to the tennis community. It should be noted that Tennis Club built a court at R.H. Johnson and are paying for it. And it's pretty ridiculous that we build 1 tennis court and now have the rec center wants to take 6 courts away from us. I doubt we will ever do that again. I usually find out about these reductions in facilities or in fact so late that it's hard to stop it. Most actions are done behind closed doors with our club fines and are long after the plan is committed. A good recreation or management should be at least let the tennis know of the fairness instead of letting us find out that it's a closed facility. Let me be clear, there's never been a formal meeting with tennis about Kunst, and there's oneness of transparency. I have to get Kunst open to play, and they have been thwarted with old safety issue game. Okay, again, I'm going to be just stop here. There's a couple more paragraphs. This was put in and sent on March 5th. So what has transpired between March 5th and now puts most of this to bed. Next, he says, in fact, we have notified the closure until the rec manager and told there was a safety issue with 3 bumps in the walkway that have been there for a few years. This was such a problem, should have been shut down years ago. Okay, some of the things closing down the course for safety was done at Palm Ridge 212, but it was seen that later tennis was allowed to continue to play till takeover by pickleball. Okay, the governing board president be praised of these actions and has done little to fix the issue. Well, that's page 2. Excuse me, just a moment. Okay, the rec center's board can do whatever they want with these tennis courts. They have done so time and time again, and at least have the decency to do openly and transparency and not let they sit empty for a few years while you make up your minds. Mike, number is 112330. And that's my commitment to put it in there. Obviously, you have heard from the general manager that most of those issues put in that letter have been taken care of already. So I just wanted to make sure I put that in there. Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I want to comment on that. A couple of years ago, I was informed that 90% of the use of the Kuntz tennis facility was outside people that just came in and used them. I don't know if that's been addressed. I don't know how it can be addressed. I know that you take hourly tours of the Kuntz facility, do we, by any stretch of the imagination, find out where these people are from, if they're residents when we do them tests or not?
Thank you, Jim. And George and the board, yes, we do. We have numbers that go back several years when it comes to the usage at Kuntz. We shared that with the tennis committee yesterday. The numbers are a little bleak when it comes to actual usage. I just want to back up just a little bit and talk about Kuntz and some of the decisions made around Kuntz. Russ and his team, once notified of the potential liability that we had out there, those courts were closed. It is a safety issue. And where are we going with that? Hence, with the master plan, we are looking at that. Based on the number of people using that court system over at Kuntz, the numbers were very, very small. Looking at the usage that we're getting over at R.H. Johnson with the 16 courts that are available, looking at those participation numbers, we're going out there now, prime time, and we're seeing no more than 9 of the 16 courts being used at the current time. So there is availability there. We don't think we're really jeopardizing anybody's ability to play tennis currently at the moment while we figure out the safety concerns that we've got at Kuntz. But yes, the facilities are monitored, not so heavily per se at Kuntz, which may allow people to come in and use that maybe not authorized to be there, whereas the rec center monitoring system over at R.H. Johnson's a little more intense. So we are studying that, we are observing that, and that, again, that all comes out in the master plan itself. But when it comes to closure, the last several months have been closed for safety. Prior to that, the entire Kuntz facility was closed for about an 8-9 month period for construction. And so, yes, no tennis was being played there. And then prior to that, for a few months, dating back to last year into February, March, the facility was closed due to COVID. And so prior to that, February on, we do have workable numbers where those courts were being used, and we have the statistical data to support any decisions that were made.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? The nice part about being president, I get the last word on something. First off, please, owner members, if you're listening to this, and anybody out there, all board members, it is our obligation to make sure we go out and remind everybody that as of Monday, online voting is available, and on the 29th, in-person voting is available at the Data Resource Center. On the 29th, after 3 o'clock, when the election is done and counted, I'll be swearing in the new board members at that point, and we'll be sitting those as we have previously stated. I just wanted to thank the board very directly for the support that they give staff day in and day out, and to myself, because it wouldn't happen without all of you. I have very little to do with anything. This is one of the most humbling experiences that we have had out here, and I'm just going to hold the meeting open for 30 more seconds while I look at the site to see what our number are. Jim, you're not allowed to have the last word, are you?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to say it. Bill, I think you mentioned it in your conversation with COVID, but I didn't catch it clearly. Are we still requiring masks in all of our buildings?
Yes, sir. Based on the Arizona Department of Health, all indoor facilities do require masks and spacing and keeping yourselves distanced and keep your hands clean.
And Jim, I'm looking it up as we speak right now. We have brand new numbers, Bill. Okay, for the state of Arizona, we are 2 yellow and 1 green. For Maricopa County, come on, it's moving at the speed of life. We are 2 yellow and 1 green. You have 83 cases per 100,000. You are at 5.5% of test positive, and the hospital visits were down to 2.6%. That's the green one.
I don't think yellow and green means a lot to the people that are listening.
Well, it is. What it is that there's the up there. When you had 3 red, you were in substantial. When you had any one of them in a yellow, you were in moderate. And when you go to the green. You have to be 3 green for be green. So until they update it, we would probably be in the moderate, if I'm correct on that one, Bill. But those are the new numbers for Maricopa County. For the state of Arizona, electronics are wonderful. Electronics are for the state, we're 78 for the state, 5.3, and hospital visits is 2.6 across the board. So good news on that number, and I can only hope that in the near future I could strike that off the agenda. Okay, folks, if there's nothing else here, hearing nothing else, I will be glad to adjourn the meeting at 9:46. Our next governing board workshop will be April 9th, right here in the beautiful social hall. Our regular meeting will be April 22nd, and at that point, we will have our new director seated. Thank you very much. Have a great day.